Dr. Cynthia Sutherland, known as the Resilience Transformer, is a globally recognized cybersecurity executive, trauma-informed strategist, and creator of the AIR method, a proven framework helping leaders and teams scale innovation without burnout. Founder of Black Crest Cyber, she equips C-suite teams, technologists, mission-driven organizations to embed human sustainability into the heart of digital transformation. With over 20 years of leadership across the Department of Defense, FEMA, NATO, and Fortune 100 tech companies, Dr. Sutherland has shaped national cybersecurity strategies, global workforce policies, and enterprise culture. Dr. Sutherland's career is defined by leadership in mission-critical roles such as incident response lead, cyber policy developer, senior cyber analyst, and chief information security officer. A trusted strategist, innovator, and advocate, she is known for building secure environments where technology, innovation, and human resilience converge. She made history as FEMA's first SCS level Chief Information Security Officer. A fierce advocate for healing and equity, Dr. Sutherland authored Letters to My Brown Girls, introducing the AFTR framework to guide survivors of childhood sexual abuse toward emotional freedom and financial power. Her own journey from teen mom and Army veteran to national security leader and doctoral scholar fuels her mission to transform pain into purpose, whether on global stages like NIST, NICE, or classrooms via her C3 framework. Dr. Sutherland empowers others to secure both their systems and their stories, with resilience as the strategy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to JCTV for the Culture and our Black History Month series. And as you heard, the bio of my very special guest here, Dr. Sutherland. Dr. Sutherland, welcome. Say a couple. They've heard me speak for a little bit, so I want you to really the first thing I want you to start off after they've heard your outstanding bio.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, Jeff. I really appreciate being here. It has been, many years since we physically saw each other, but it's just like when catching up with you is just like I saw you just last week.
It is. I'll let people in. We had a conversation on Friday, and I looked up and I was like, man, I gotta go. We just kept talking. I looked up, I was like, man, it was a great conversation, a much needed conversation for me, even outside of what we're talking about and what we're doing here. It was just good to talk to someone, a good person, so that's doing great things and that understands, we come from the same place. We have those Gaffney roots. And again, as I told you, people sometimes they get tired. If you get tired of hearing me mention Gaffney, referencing Gaffney, you might as well turn me off, because I'm always going to do it. If you're around me, I'm going to do it. If you hear me on here, I'm going to do it. So, but it's just good to speak to someone who understands, who knows your roots, where you come from.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. It's like you doing this. It's the love that you have for your community. It's not that you have to, that people need you to. It's that you have a love, and God sent you here to do that and expose people to things that they may have never gotten information about.
Absolutely. And you asked me a great question. Yeah, you asked me because when I reached out to you to ask you to do this interview, you said, what do you want to get out of this? And I knew what I wanted to get out of it. And you asking me that was awesome, just to put it out there. And I told you, and this is part of our my channel's Black History Month series. And when I spoke about that, and I did a video about Mansa Musa, and I've done some other videos that I'm going to put out. And there is Nuri Muhammad. He said, and other people have said it too, that when you speak about Black history, a lot of people, they immediately go to post-slavery. And that's just all our history. And our history is much bigger than that. And that's why I take it back further. But also I want to speak about and highlight current and what we're doing to go forward. Like our current, your Black history to me. You're a product of what everyone's been fighting for, what Dr. King fought for, what everyone else fought for. And you're a product of that. And I want to acknowledge that, uplift that, and I want people
Oh
to
yeah.
see it,
Oh yeah.
especially people from Gaffney, someone who come from, where we're from, that is someone that's not playing a sport, it's not doing music, entertainment. And I love everybody who's doing that. That is an outstanding feat in itself. But I just want people to understand that there's a lot of different ways to be successful in what you deem success. So
Yes, yes. It for me, I was watching when I was watching the Super Bowl, and I saw Bad Bunny and Ricky Martin, and how that whole generational transition from Ricky opening the doors to where Bad Bunny stepped in, right? And, and so like even for us, where we, people have opened doors for us. I can't imagine where I would be in this world right now if it were not for people like Coach McClary, Dr. Carol McFadden. These are the people that open the doors or set the foundation for me to just walk in, because it's like I know I would have went a different path coming from where I came from. And so for me to then be in this position, and parents calling me from Gaffney, hey, my daughter or my child wants to go into cybersecurity. What can I do? What does that look like? Me coming back home and speaking. Those are things that I love to do, because that is the future for us.
absolutely, absolutely. And this interview is about you. But you just mentioned somebody, and I got chills when you said it. My face, you saw I smiled when you said her name. And I'm gonna send this to you. I'm gonna let you send it to her. No, let me send it to her.
I'm gonna let you send it to her,
because she's gonna look and see two of her, her just work, all the work.
her babies. That's
Dr.
what she gonna call her.
Carol McFadden. And for those who don't know, that predate Miss Robs, but Doctor, and call her by her name, Dr. Carol McFadden. Can you just talk a little, as much? I'm not going to say a little bit, whatever you want to say about her. And I'm going to slide. Give me I want to say something about her too. I have to. I just give me your thoughts on her, because I understand. Let everybody who doesn't know understand.
That transition. So the transition for kids between elementary school and middle school is critical, right? And when I look back on the importance, the impact that she had on my life, I was at a pivotal moment where I was being bullied growing up in the projects. I was being bullied, being called nerd, being felt so alienated, and just not wanting to just be me. So when I got to middle school, I'm thinking, oh, I don't want to be a nerd anymore. I just want to hang out and be like the rest of the kids. But as I tried to not be the nerd, I started doing things like hanging out and skipping class, and hanging out in the hallways, and hanging out with the wrong people. And so one day I was in the hallway, and she catches me. She's like, Cynthia, I see you. I'm seeing you too many times in my hallways. Get to class. I was like, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I'm thinking, she ain't going to catch me no more. I'm going to go around to the other hall. As soon as I go around on the other hall, she catches me. And so I remember her sending me to her office, and me sitting there waiting on her. Like I had heard rumors about how she was, but I had never experienced it. So by the time when she got to that office, she called me in her office, and I went back there, I sat down. This woman had pulled my records from elementary school. She's pulled my scores. She now is in my face telling me how she's not going to let me go down the wrong path because of how smart I am. She's not going to just let me throw my life away. And so then she says, she goes and goes on. And then she says, now go around to the guidance office and tell Miss Cleveland, Miss Lil John, I sent you. And I was like, oh, so they had a squad against us. And so I went around there, and my life changed drastically. From then on out, the guidance office and the front office became my safe space. It was where I could be me. It's where I could feel genuine people that genuinely cared about my future. And when I was actually told that you can actually go to college, and watching A Different World. Like, I still watch A Different World to this day. I'll go back and watch it. My daughter has seen every episode. And so I go back and I look back at, yes, we had a different world at that time, but then we had people that were actual practitioners that put together processes and events and opportunities to help us really see that, like getting on the bus and from Thickety Mountain, taking the bus up to Johnson C. Smith, going down to South Carolina State, seeing the Battle of the Bands, all that stuff is like, wow. And that is what she instilled in me. So when I even left middle school and went to high school, I connected with the guidance counselors at Gaffney High. And so just going through and being there, and then for me to now be an adult and her always have my back, it's just unbelievable. So when I wrote my first book, there's a part in there that spoke about what it means. And for those that don't know, I'm a survivor of a 60-year generational curse of childhood sexual abuse. And so for her to be that person to me and me talk about my journey, I acknowledge how much of an impact she had on me during that time when I just didn't want to be me. And so from here on out, like, she knows she has my heart from the day, till the day I die.
And again, you just said so much. I remember those trips to South Carolina State, about being able to understand that you can go to college. Yes. I'm from West End. She's from West End also. My mom gave me to her and said, because I was, and I shared this with you, I was dead or in jail or on the streets and something if it was not for her. I was a complete mess when she got me, and she did all the things that you just talked about. She did for me as well. She's an amazing person. I came from an elementary school where my principal sat in my face and told me in the principal's office that I was never going to make it off of West End, even if I would survive West End. He told me that. I'm not going to say his name. I've said his name before. I'm not going to say his name again, but everybody knows who's the principal at Mary Bramlett during that time. Listen about him. So with her, and she took me, and like I told you, she broke me down and she built me back up. That story about catching you in the halls, she caught me in the halls, that sitting in that office. It was a psychological thing. She let me sit in there on her couch while she wasn't in there, just to think about what she was going to do. I picked up on it after a while. I was like, she's right there. Jawanda was out there, she knows. I would walk in there and Jawanda would, like, man, what you do this time? What you do? But I can't say that all the fear, but she loved on me so much that she made me believe in myself and understand that I could do much better. Just the same thing about not wanting people to know that you're smart or that you can do work. She's like, you're not dumb, and I'm not going to let people think and let you make it seem like you're dumb to people either. So you're smart, and people are going to know it. I told you, she taught me, made me take typing. She made me take home ec. She made all these things preparing me for life that I went in kicking and screaming that I appreciate today. So I just love her and for everything that she did for me. And I echo, and I understand, why you feel the way you do about her. I love her.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Those are the things that made us. Those are the people that opened doors, because I can't imagine what she went through just to even become the principal of Grenard. Like, and again, her fighting the good fight for her to be in that seat. Like, oh yeah. Like, and even for me, when I became the first security operations branch chief for the Office of the Secretary of Defense, and after experiencing 6 months of racism and just so much hatred, I went to HR. And at the time, me and the HR chief of staff were good friends. And I told him I was quitting. And he was like, no, Cynthia, you can't quit. We're building something special here. And I'm like, he said, I need you to take one for the team. I said, I'm tired of taking one for the team. I don't want to do this anymore. I was like, I could leave and make way more, twice as much money in private sector doing the same crap. He's like, no, we're doing something special. And he said to me, you are going to be a symbol for those that come behind you. you're going to be someone that teaches people how this is how you can do this. And so when I look back on what, he said to me, and I compare that to what she went through, I can imagine just so much that you have to deal with to open doors for those that come behind you.
That is, again, and talking about, shared experiences. And because I work in the private sector and financial, work for a bank, one of the Fortune 50 banks, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And people who know me, that doesn't align with what they hear from me and what they see from me and what they know me to be. And I've tried to leave 100 times. And because I work a lot with nonprofits, and I work, everything I've done is about doing what's right for people. I've worked in affordable housing, it's just things that help people. And someone told me, you can't leave. We need people like you inside. And that's like, I wanted to go so many times.
Yes.
And it's just like, I can't. Like, you can't go. You have to be on the inside and have some sort of change. So that's a outstanding point. But you do get tired of taking one for the team. But when you see someone who went through much worse than what I'm going through, that doesn't compare to what Dr. McFadden went through and others that came before us. I feel like I owe it to them to be.
Oh yes. We just build on top of what they've said, and I was watching Ali Sadiq. I don't know if you watch him as a comedian.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite comedians.
He's one of my favorite comedians.
Yeah.
And he said I remember when he said to his son, where his son said, "I'm trying to go get it out the mud." And he was like, "Why would you do that?"
No, I made sure my daughter didn't have. If she mentioned that one time, I'm like, "Girl, stop! What mud? You haven't seen any mud at all." I went through. When me and your mother had all the mud. You are clean. Have a fresh start. Stop it.
Exactly.
Why would you want that? Knock it off.
Exactly. And that's when we go talk to kids. We're trying to tell them, don't go get it out the mud.
No.
Build off what we built for you.
No, the mud is not what you want.
Mud is not what you want.
But that also brings up a good point for me, because a lot of, we're talking about, I want you to talk a little bit more about, because I know you touched on some of your career, but I want to really focus on how you got there a little bit more, like going through your Gaffney experience and just coming up and just, what made you.
Ooh. So, when I look back on it, you have like your typical 13 years of high school, elementary school, preschool, whatever. For me, I did first grade twice. They held me back in the first grade saying that I couldn't read. And at that point, what I was going through, like I was sexually assaulted, abused from 3 to 10 years old. So that's elementary school years. So then getting to where I'm in, middle school, it's like, okay, learning how to navigate from that. And going through middle school, being with, Dr. McFadden and seeing Black teachers, Black principals, because I never saw that where I went to school at Central. And so being able to see them, feel them, experience them, it did give me a sense of pride. So then I get to high school, and now I'm here experiencing the rest of Gaffney teenagers, right? And I remember in elementary school, I lost a lot of friends because I had a pivot in my mindset where I saw some things that some friends of mine that were picking on people who didn't have the name brand clothes, whose parents didn't have money, right? And for me at that point in time, it was like, I don't want to be around people like that. Like, I know where I came from. Like, how would I, feel if that was constantly me? And so my best friend at the time was Marcus Littlejohn, to this day, still like my brother. From 8th grade, him and Carrie Posey were just like we were just real tight going up. So then we get to high school, and now I was experiencing high school and everything that came with it. And so throughout high school, going through and connecting with the guidance office, the football program, it did give you a sense of pride. And so everything about Gaffney Indian football is pride.
Pride and tradition. Yeah. Pride
It's a tradition. I was excited to be the ball girl on the sidelines where my job was just to maintain and keep the ball dry, me and Andrina. And so it was just having that sense of pride at the school or whatever, but then also just dealing with home life. And so my mom worked in a cotton mill, still to this day at that same cotton mill, and navigating all of that, it was what does the next steps look like for me? And so then I got this wanting to have something that loved me. And so long story short, I ended up getting pregnant my senior year in high school. And I remember when my AP calculus teacher told me I would never graduate college. I will never make it in college, and told me to take the AP exam just to see what a real college exam would feel like. And so when I had my son, he came 2 months early, and it was me, he was a preemie. And so me being at home, I was missing out on instruction. And so Coach Frank Byers, who was my algebra teacher in middle school, he came to my house every day he got off work, and he came and tutored me just so I could pass the AP calculus exam. How many teachers do you know would actually do that? Right? And so from him to be in my life and help me navigate, and I end up passing the AP exam with a 4. And because it takes a 3 to pass, I passed it with a 4. And he was my biggest supporter navigating the academic realm, because if it were not for him, I don't know how I would have done it. And so being a teenage mom, then graduating high school on Wednesday, starting at Freightliner on Monday, it wasn't senior week for me. It was, I need to go to work because I got to take care of me and mine. Yeah, so going through those 2 years after I graduated high school in class, shout out the class of 97. But 2 years after that, I end up because I couldn't get support. I didn't want to be struggling for the rest of my life. And so I joined the Army. You there?
You still? Yeah, I'm still there. I think you broke up just a little bit. Yeah.
I did.
Oh, don't worry about it. I can fix that, and we'll fix that part.
Okay, cool. No problem. So yes, I graduated and then went to the Army, and that was in 2000. And navigating the military space was interesting, but what made it even more interesting was 9/11. So when 9/11 happened, because I was Army National Guard, right? I did my 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. Over the summer, I was taking every training class that they offered. So then when 9/11 happened, it was, hey, we're going to be deployed. 9/11 happened in 2001.
Yep.
We didn't get deployed until January 2003. When they told us in 2001, it was, okay, we're going to get deployed. There's no reason for me to go back to school. There's no reason for me to renew my lease. So I shut everything down in preparation to be deployed. And none of that happened. It took 2 years for us to deploy. So around the time I said, oh, we're not going anywhere. Soon as I decided it was time for me to go back to school, that's when we got deployed. So it was an interesting journey. I did 1 year back at airport. We left February 2003. I went to Indiana for pre-mob deployment, stayed there in Indiana to Easter Sunday in April. And then we flew to Kuwait. I was in Kuwait for a month and a half before they sent us to the airport. And in support of that, it was a nightmare. We were, from the time we stepped foot on the ground to the time I left in September, it was attacks every day. I got injured. It was a lot. And so navigating that to then, go ahead.
Oh, I said, that's I didn't know that about you, about the deployment and the injuries. Like I knew you about your military background, but I didn't know that piece of it.
Yep. Yeah.
Can you, one thing I want to just, and that made me think about something, and this just kind of ties in. There's one story I'm working on about blacks in the military and just that experience. I know we're doing something about the Buffalo. So just there's a lot that we're working on. It's taking my time with this one. I have some of my family members and friends that are military, that because I want to get a perspective. I can't, that wasn't my experience. So I personally can't tell their story. So I like to hear from those of us who were there, just from that perspective about also being a black and being a female in the military. What was that experience like, just from that standpoint?
So it was it was a struggle, but not for the reasons that many think for me. So for me, I had an IT background and I had a special set of skills that the officers did not have at that time. And it was called keyboarding and typing skills.
Yes.
And I specialized. I knew everything about Microsoft Office products at the time. So Excel, Access, Word. So they kept me in the officers team. So every it was it's to do that, where that's those connections are what helped me navigate and understand the policies. That's the first part. The second part was I was detached from my home unit and attached to a separate unit. And let's just say I was harassed for a while. And it wasn't, even when we got to Baghdad, I got tired of fighting two wars at one time. So when they asked for volunteers to support the military police out of Buffalo, New York, I quickly said, send me. I will go because I need to be away from them. And so to get away from them, and it was primarily Black women harassing another Black woman. And that's the frustrating about being a woman. Sometimes it's other Black women that makes things harder for you. And so that was the struggle that I had there. Other than that, getting injured, seeing your fellow soldiers die. When I did get injured, they had shut down the roads to the hospital. So I had to lay around on posts for like a month with a busted knee and trying to get to where I needed to be so that I could get help. Then being stationed and having to sleep beside dead bodies. It was a lot. It was a lot. And I know for me, it's something that I want to process and deal with this year. But it was a horrible experience. From that perspective, just the overall war, and dealing with the harassment, the second war, the internal war I had to deal with. But other than like my male troops, they were very supportive. I didn't have any challenges with them because I worked. I did everything I was supposed to do. And I remember one time when we first got to Baghdad, the first sergeant said, "Okay, everyone, we had under the cover of night, and we had to unpack." And he said, "All right, you guys go put your rucksacks down, come back outside. We're going to unload the truck. As soon as we can unload the truck, we can all get our bags and go to bed." So we run into the tent to put our stuff down. Females over here, men over there. Put my stuff down. So I'm running outside. And I was like, "Valentine, where you come unpack the truck?" They said, "No, let the men do it. Let the men do it." It's like, no, that's not fair. We got to put our part in. So I go back out. They said, "You always run to go do something." I was like, whatever. So I go out and we're unloading the truck. Top say, Valentine, where the women at? I said, they're in the tent, sir. Still unloading the truck. He said, go get them. I said, well, Top, they said, they'll let us do it. And then, they'll get their bags afterwards. He said, toss their shit in the desert. It did not help my cause, Jeff. It did not help my cause because it just made it worse. Because again, we're in Baghdad. There is it was after the war. There is no street lights.
You're right.
This is pure desert.
Yeah.
Pitch black. And you can't even put it on your headlights in white. It has to be red. So the adversary can't see you.
Right.
So they got tossed in the middle of the desert. And I had to deal with their backlash from that. So it was just always, it's a different war that you have to fight being a Black woman in the military at times.
And first of all, I thank you for your service, and thank you for those in your fellow soldiers for your service. I know that's not hard, in fighting that different wars on fronts, and especially given that perspective of, again, you as a civilian on the outside looking in, you think it's one thing that you're struggling with, and that gets to some of the, and I'll save that conversation for another day. Some of the internal struggles and fights that we have as a people. That we make it harder on ourselves to do, it's hard enough out in this world fighting everything else, but we're making it harder on ourselves sometimes. But just hearing that, just everything about your story, again, is resilience, from the time that you were going through grade school, going up fighting, going through high school, and just getting to a place. And again, knowing you, I'm still hearing things that I didn't. Some of the things you're filling in, some connecting some dots, filling in some spaces that I didn't know, and it makes your story even that much more. To me, it's an incredible story, and I'm not big on hyperbole. I actually mean it when I say it. That to go through what you've been through to get to this point, and
Jeff, that is one of the things. Like for me, I was like constantly going right. Because one of the things that I realized, like when I came home, I was like, I got to finish my degree. I got to pledge. I got to do this. I got to hit the ground running because my life was on hold for like 2 years because of 9/11. So as soon as I got an opportunity to come home, I remember my aunt saying to me, I prayed that you would get injured, but not injured so that you die because I wanted you to come home. Right. Wow. And so when I got injured and came home, she was like, my prayers were answered because I don't know if you remember Sidney Rice.
Of course. Of course. Yeah.
Yes. Coming home to make sure that he did all the things he needed to do to get into school and get gone. And so that was me coming home, driving home from Kentucky, from Fort Knox every weekend to make sure he's doing all the things he needs to do so he can leave. And so then after that, it was going to school. I graduated from Limestone College with my bachelor's in information systems management in 2004. I pledged Delta Sigma Theta, Xi Iota, Spartanburg citywide chapter. Shout out to my sorors in Spartanburg. And that was in spring 2004, graduated in fall 2004. But then I immediately left Gaffney. After I did all that, I moved to DC. And I moved because I tried to get IT jobs in the South. I tried Atlanta, Charlotte, Greenville, Gaffney, and I couldn't get a job that would pay me what I was worth. And someone said to me, you have a security clearance. Why don't you try DC? And I was like, I don't know anybody in DC. And so then my mom was like, well, you got your cousin Freddie. And I was like, oh, you know what? Let me reach out to him. So soon as I left Gaffney and moved to Maryland to stay with my cousin, I was with him for a month and a half. And I kid you not, Jeff, I was looking for a job 13, 14 hours a day.
Yeah.
It wasn't coming. People like, oh, I would look for a job. When you ask them how long, well, I put in a couple of applications. No, looking for a job is a full-time job, especially when you're trying to get the job that you want.
You know what? And that makes me think. I want you to say that again too, because this is for the younger. again, I don't want to be the old fogey who speaks like that about the younger generation, but they see what you do right now. And it's like that thing where you see the duck, you see it, floating across the water, but you don't see the paddling underneath or everything it took to get to the point to where you see them floating out. That's work it took to get there.
Oh yeah, they don't see the iceberg. The iceberg, you see that pretty, you see the little small top above the water, but you don't see all the stuff, all the buildup, all the damage, all the broken parts and everything under the water. You only see what's top. And so when getting to where I am, it was okay. I don't know what I want to be. That's when I came up here. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I just knew I wanted to go into IT. That was it. Didn't know. And so I get my first job working for the National Guard Bureau, working on the service desk there. And prior to that, I had did IT and stuff in the Army and all this other stuff, but it was still, what do you want? I want a career, because the number one goal that I had in my life, Jeff, and me and you talked about it, I think you mentioned it earlier. The number one goal was that me being a single mom, I wanted to be there for my son. Mm-hmm. But the problem was, as a single mom, you're a single mom. Yeah. So it takes a lot. And one of the things I did not want to have to worry about is that if a school called me and told me I need to come take care of my son, I do not want to have to worry about losing my job.
Can you do something for me? And I love that point. Explain the difference between a job and a career.
Sure. A job is something that you get up, you go to, it pays you an hourly wage, you go to it, and you're executing your skills. There's no end goal on there. There's no path, right? But when you get a career, there's an end goal, and you have a path from where you are to get to that end goal. And every profession has, and what happens is you grow up, me growing up, coming from an environment where you work at a factory, you go get paid hourly, you get paid by the hour, you get some, quote unquote benefits, but you get paid by the hour. Yes. When you get a career, with a career, you get what we call a total compensation package. Yes. Right? Total compensation package is your salary, your stock, and then your bonuses. Yes. Total compensation package. And I still meet adults to this day that have never understood or even heard of a total compensation package. And so what we try to tell kids, because I had so the Omegas bought some kids to Amazon to see me. And I had talked to them about the difference between going to work and getting a paycheck versus a salary, and getting a total compensation package. And so you can go and get a degree. When you graduate, or before you graduate, you do your, all your internships and stuff, but you need to understand how to evaluate a business or a career or position. And so you got companies out here, total compensation package, they'll pay you $50, $60, $80, $200,000 just to sign on with them. Yes. Then they'll give you your regular paycheck. But see, here's the thing. They'll give you a sign-on bonus and your paycheck, but then they're going to also offer you stock to work for their company. But they're not going to give you that stock the first 2 years, because they need to know that you're going to stick around and not take the money and run. So they're going to make sure that the first 2 years, they're going to chop it up to keep you. And then after them 2 years, you start investing into their company. And so with a career versus a job, you get your paycheck, you get your hourly wage, but a career, there's path. There's a progression along that path to get to an end goal, and it gives you way more money. Yes. And options and flexibility.
Yep. Yeah, they're working the hourly, and that's one of the big things where if you do have kids, you're not, and this isn't to disparage anyone who does that, and because if you can have great jobs, and that's not what this is intended for, but it gives you more flexibility where you're not on the clock. You have to worry about punching in. You can go. They understand that you have the flexibility to, as long as you get your work done and you're present, it works that way.
But the difference between a job in a career, what I've seen is that a career is something you're passionate about. You get
That's what I was
excited to get up every day to do that. You would, in some cases, you'll do it for free because you love doing it so much. And so the thing about those hourly jobs, they help you figure out what you don't want to do. Because I worked, I worked in the Cherokee County Mental Health Clinic typing. I worked at Paragon flattening boxes. I worked at Alcoa trimming off the plastic off the shutters. I worked those jobs in those 2 years before the military. And I realized I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. And so I also knew that there was something bigger and better for me out there. And so coming here, I started out, like I said, I did 8 years as an Army cyber soldier. I did 8 years as a federal defense contractor. So as a contractor, I had my own cybersecurity business where my very first contract was securing the Pentagon. And people like, whoa, I'm like, yes, it was so much fun because it was something that I love to do. But here's the thing about doing that kind of work. They will only give you those opportunities if you prove the quality of the work that you do and you're reliable. When you have quality work and you have a brand give you those opportunities, how she will give to do that work in. And so I did 8 years as a defense contractor. And then because I did so well, and then I got this little small pesky habit of wanting to fall in love. And
everybody does.
Everybody does, right? Just a little bit. So fell in love, got married. And then we had our daughter, and me being in the military as a single mom, I missed a lot of my son's first 5 years of growing up. And I didn't want to do that with my daughter. And so I shut my business down. And because I shut my business down, the government still wanted me. They hired me as an employee. And so that's how I end up coming in and being the security operations branch chief for the Office of the Secretary of Defense and building out a security operations branch for him and for the organization. And so did that for almost a year before I got promoted to my dream job, which was the Chief Information Security Officer for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, where I supported the chairman. And for those that don't know, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is the senior military advisor to the Secretary of Defense and the president. And so my job was to ensure that cybersecurity was implemented across all of his needs, as well as support what we call the combatant commands. Are you familiar with the combatant commands, Jeff?
Not sure. Give me the definition. I may know about something.
So you have the services, the branches of the military: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard. Their job is to man, train, and equip soldiers so that the soldiers could support the war fighting mission. The war fighting mission is executed by the combatant commands. People have special ops. Yes. You've heard of special ops. Yes. So they are combatant command. Yes. But then there's also, people have heard in movies, NORAD. They're part of NORTHCOM. Okay. They are a geographical combatant commands, and we have geographical combatant commands across the entire globe. NORTHCOM's job is all of North America, SOUTHCOM, South America, AFRICOM, Africa, EUCOM, Europe, the Europe, Asia, and then you have PACOM, Pacific Asia area, and then you have functional combatant commands. So people have heard of CyberCom. Their space, their job is cyber. Now we have Space Force, right? We have Transcom. Yep. So all of them, when you hear them, their job, they are combatant commands. The services build soldiers that feed them.
That is interesting. So this is what, and you just, again, brought something home. How getting into that, I don't want you to go back for a second, because some people may have missed what you said and how important and how elite of a position that was, working with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. You breeze past that one a little bit. I want you to explain to everybody because what you just said touches on, okay, this is how important that is. But that's a really, really not there's not a lot of people who do that and can get to that point. I want
Not
you got to back up and talk about that. This is why you're here. Don't breeze.
Sure.
I'm not gonna let you breeze past that. You're gonna have to give us some more on that.
Sure, Jeff. So what happened? So how I ended up there is people like, for me, it was me navigating my self-awareness journey to heal past my sexual abuse. Why is that important? That is important because it helped me identify the soul of me and realize how resilient and strong I was. Because then what I did was I addressed my trauma. I healed past my trauma. And when I healed past my trauma, that at the end of it, it took me, I'll say, a year and a half. By the time I was done with it, I was like, I felt so so invincible. Like I felt like can't nobody touch me. I knew me. I knew who I was. And when I walk in a room, you gonna feel it. So that's how I was. Yes, and so what happened is one of those people, those racists that I had been working with had tried to set me up to fail. And what happened was I ended up going into a meeting that I wasn't even supposed to go into. Come to find out, he had put me as his backup, and no one ever told him, no one ever told me, nor my boss. So when my boss calls and said, hey, I need you to go to this meeting, I was like, why? He got all those people over there. He was like, no, I need you to go find out what's going on because he's not being honest about everything. So I was like, all right, whatever. I didn't want to go, but something kept nagging at me. And so I felt that it was God saying, hey, I need you to go do this. So I listened. Any other day, Jeff, the bus from my office to the Pentagon would have been late. But this day, it was on time. So I was like, oh. So I get to the Pentagon library and walk up to the door, and the woman says, your name and organization. So I tell her, and she says, oh, I got a nameplate for you. A nameplate for me? So I've never been here before.
Yeah, she knew you were coming.
No, he signed me up as backup and never told us. So every time he was out, they were looking for me. It was a setup. So I said, you know what? Didn't know what was going to happen in this meeting, but I'm going to show up and show out regardless, right? So I sit down at the table. In walks every chief information security officer from across the entire Department of Defense, to include the chief information security officer for the Department of Defense. Now, here I am sitting here like, oh, shit. Excuse my language. I was sitting there. They all sit down, Jeff. I'm the only woman at the table. Only woman at the table. There were two other Black people across from me. One was the chief information security officer for the Army, and then the other one was a colonel from the Joint Staff. So the CISO, chief information security officer, we call it the CISO from the Department of Defense started asking everyone. So mind you, like I said, it's like 20 of us at this long conference table, people on the back walls. It was full of people from everywhere. So he starts talking, and he starts asking about how to secure a specific system. And I'm looking around. I know I've secured the system, but evidently I was the only one that had ever did it. So I start talking to him. He and I going back and forth. Everybody's just watching our exchange and, putting it down or whatever. So then after the meeting, the colonel from the Joint Staff says to me, I love how you've been handling this situation. Bop, 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 bop. We're having some similar challenges over here. I would love to talk to you about how we could help, move forward. It's like, all right, cool. So he said, let's go do lunch. So sure. So we go over to Popeyes because, we got Popeyes and have a whole food court in there. So we go to Popeyes and we sit down and we eat some chicken. And so we just kind of talking. I'm telling him what he needs to do, blah, 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 blah. And he says, you should apply for my CISO role for the Joint Staff. I was like, sure. He said, I know this may be a lateral for you, but I think you'd be a great fit. You should apply. I said, okay. And that was in the inside of me. I was jumping up and down.
Yeah. You had to play it cool. You had to play it cool.
Had to play it cool. Had to play it cool.
Like, let me check my Palm Pilot. I got other stuff going on.
I think I'm good.
I might. Yeah, I'll let you know.
Yeah. And so afterwards, when we separated, I went to the bathroom and was just like, yes! Right? So afterwards, I applied, went through the different interviews, the panels, stuff like that. And that's how I end up getting a job. And the lesson that I learned from that is that every opportunity you get to show up and represent the best version of you, you have to show up and do that. Because here is someone who has never met me. Honestly, this was the first job I've ever had, Jeff, where I knew absolutely no one in this organization. Every other job I've gotten has been a referral from somebody else. But the joint staff was the only job I got that I didn't know anyone. And so for me to walk into this position and be able to kill it. And I remember the first time I walked into my first 3-star general meeting. I'm sitting at the table. Jeff, I'm the only woman there. I'm sorry. There's other women, but they're running the PowerPoint presentation and taking notes.
Yeah.
So,
and that came from somebody trying to set you up for failure, and they just set you up on a path. That's one of those things that's got like, thank you, appreciate that. You put me out front and center, but that's where I need to be, is out front and center. Thank you for that opportunity.
Yes. And when I tell you, and it was just amazing for me to go through that. And then I started in like December 2014. So then I come in and now I'm at the cream of the crop. There's nobody smarter and better than those that's in the military that's at the joint staff. And we're like, that's where you bring all your experts to, right? And so to be able to support the chairman, and the thing is about all the different services there, right? Every service has a chief of staff. Their job is to understand the manning of the military. And so you got the Army's chief of staff, Air Force chiefs of staff, and all of them make up the Joint Chiefs. And then there is that one person who's the chairman, and his job is to work along with all the other chiefs, work along with the rest of the world. And so I end up becoming his senior cyber analyst, his senior cloud expert. I'm doing all these things. And then they made me the U.S. representative and global chair to NATO, to lead NATO and 23 countries into integrating cybersecurity across our military. Jeff, I'm coming from the project.
Man, listen, hold on, wait a minute, because is this the same time where you were? This was the same time you worked with FEMA also, or is it?
No, FEMA was after this.
Was after this. So you get CISO, then with NATO. So you're just stacking up, like you just.
Yes, because what was happening is that summer, August of 2015, my network hacked. People talk about cybersecurity. Let me tell you, I had the best cyber audit scores in the Pentagon in May prior to that, right? That May of 2015, best scores. And how did we get hacked? Because 3 humans clicked on links. One person took the email out of his junk mail and clicked on the link. Like, seriously, who does that?
Man, listen, so I'm gonna hold on, wait a minute, because with working for a financial institution, we big on they give us phishing tests all the time.
Oh yes,
and
yes.
If you fail one of those phishing tests, you have to go into a program. You do it twice, you get out of there. They'll send you into you basically have to go to a course, learn how not to do it again, what's the dangers of doing it, and you're on strict probation for a long time. You do it again, your computer's gonna shut down and somebody's gonna come and get you and walk you out of there expeditiously.
We will show up with a box, because that's what I told security to do.
Yeah,
with a box, like security, like absolutely not. Yeah. And so it was going through all being hacked and going through all that. And then at that time I was like, I want to do, because then also what happened because of that, I had to develop a phishing awareness briefing. That phishing awareness training ended up getting put in front of the Secretary of Defense's eyesight. And he was like, I want everybody in the building to take this training. The year. My training. Now, in 1 month. Yeah. Bananas. Bananas. They told me I had to brief it from the Pentagon Auditorium live video feed across the entire Washington, D.C. area. Jeff, when I tell you I was so nervous and I only had 1 week to prepare. I hadn't had a haircut, my nails were so it was trying to get all that stuff together. So then when I sat down in there, it was, I'm doing this in front of the racist, the sexist that I had to deal with in my previous job. Yeah, it was with executives. It was with the entire IT organization. I'm doing phishing training to the IT organization, people that wanted to see me fail. So now here I am in front of all these people, and I killed it. And it's so much so they were like, look, we want to put you here. And that's how I end up getting moved to become the U.S. representative and the global chair. And so, and doing all of that, doing this, a lot of awesome work, a lot of fun work. But in the time, they were like, hey, Cynthia, we want you to become a senior executive. And I was like, no, because I wanted to finish up my doctorate. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to do my nonprofit. But my goal was always getting my doctorate. So I said, well, look, I'm not going to say absolutely no. I'm going to say not right now. But I want to take the opportunities that you present to me to close the gaps on what I need to have to become an executive. And so when I graduated with my doctorate, my boss took me out to lunch and he said, Cynthia, I'm getting ready to retire. I said, okay.
Hold on. I'm going to do this again.
Okay.
I want you to back. You keep breezing past the doctorate. I'm not, again, whenever you talk, there's certain things you just casually just drop doctorate. I want to do it, and you just jump. No, man. Let's
we got?
Let's back this up a little bit. Why was it important for you when you talked about you put some other opportunities kind of on hold or just not right now? Because that was important to you. Why was that important to you?
The doctorate was important to me for a couple of reasons. One was after it came about because I wanted to do a job that nobody would hire me for. I wanted to go into digital forensics and run an incident response team. Okay. And I love IT down to the circuit. And so for me, digital forensics is that passion that I had. Well, what happened is because no one would give me that job, when I came in as a government employee and the security operations branch chief, I inherited an entire incident response and digital forensics team. So it was like, wow, I wanted it and I couldn't get it. But then when I come into government, they gave me a whole team. So I'm running the program and I'm doing it and I'm loving it. But then I'm fighting with lawyers. It was lawyers who didn't understand IT. They were asking for things that were outside the scope of the warrant. They were asking for things. And it's not that it wasn't their fault. They just didn't understand the advancement of virtual systems and cloud and things like that. Right. And so that was when I was in with working for the SecDef. But then when I moved over to the joint staff, it was the same thing. But the lawyers were more open to feedback. And so, but still, it was still a lot. And so I said, you know what? There's no reason why lawyers should not know IT right now. Like I know they're teaching you guys this. So then when I found out they weren't, I was like, all right, I'm gonna get my doctorate in it and create a whole new curriculum for lawyers. So that was the first part. The second part was I wanted to do my doctorate. It was a personal journey of mine, period. Like I said, I met seeing Dr. McFadden, meeting, them, and then also understanding that doctorate opens up doors that a regular degree will never open. And when they told me at the joint staff, the key variable that got me above every candidate who applied was my doctorate.
And I love that you say that, because we're at a point right now to where some people are trying to devalue education and getting certain degrees. And I've always said that if you're getting them just to get them, I can see somebody's point in that. But when you have a strategy, when you have a goal in mind as to what you want to do with that, there's still nothing more valuable than showing someone. When you get a degree, it shows someone that you're dedicated to a field, that you can learn, that you can obtain something, and you have an expertise in that field, and then you have the experience to back it up. Nobody can devalue that for you. That's never going to go away. Now, we can talk about what it costs to get it, what's behind the education system, what you should have to pay for. That's a conversation. But the value of that, getting your doctorate and having your experience and knowing what you want to do with it, nobody can take that from you.
Ever. No one can take that. And it's like I said, a bachelor says, okay, I said around long enough to accomplish something. A master says, a master says, okay, I'm dedicated to this. I want to do something. I want to work in this field. A doctorate says, I love this field so much, I want to contribute to it. And so there's your PhDs, and then there's your DSCs, right? Mm-hmm. Your DSC is your doctorate of science, and your PhD is your philosophy doctorate. And so for DSCs, I have a DSC where it's not just about me creating something, but it's also me applying it and being able to show that I have executed that in the real world.
Yes.
So yes, the doctorate was that. And then also I wanted the doctorate to lend itself in its weight to my nonprofit and to my book. But I didn't know which one to do first. So I called my best friend. She has her doctorate. Shout out to Dr. Michelle Harris. And she was like, Cynthia, I said, I want to get my doctorate, but I want to get the nonprofit. And I said, but I do also want to do the book. And then she's like, no, Cynthia, this is what you do. She said, get your doctorate. Mm-hmm. Your doctorate will lend its weight to the book and to the doctorate first. And so,
sorry, you're going to be outstanding at your podcast, because you just segued into from the doctorate to your nonprofit work and what you do outside of that. That's a perfect segue. I want to talk about some of that. And it just seems like it's natural, because it's just your story. And I know nobody knows your story like you, and you've lived it and felt it, and you're passionate about what you do and talking about it. So talk about what once you've obtained that doctorate, once your career-wise, you're doing things in your career. So outside of like work now, what are some of the other things?
Sure. So I will tell you, I'll close the professional part with this one. Well, after I graduated my doctorate, my boss took me to lunch. And he said, Cynthia, I'm about to retire, but please don't, because I need you to help me. And I was like, okay. I said, I will stay if you give me the things to do to become an executive, meaning giving me the opportunities and the knowledge that I need to understand how the overall federal government works. And he said, yes, I'll do that. And then I went to my mentor and I told her I wanted to be a professor, right? I wanted to leave and become a professor. She said, no, Cynthia, here's what you do. She said, now that you're a doctor, she said, create a name for yourself at the Joint Staff as Dr. Cynthia Sutherland, the CISO at the Joint Staff. She said, because what happens then is that now that's even more weight. And when you leave, you'll be able to get your opportunity anywhere because no one will have the experience in cyber that you have. And I was like, okay, bet. So I stayed at the Joint Staff. But then what happened is I got the opportunity to go to FEMA because FEMA was really struggling at the time. And this was during COVID. And so my boss gave me all the opportunities because what happened is when you have a job that you or a career that you want, you need to first find out what are they asking you for and then identify what's missing. And I identified my gaps. And then when my boss came at me with opportunities at work, I only took the opportunities that helped fill those gaps. When this job from FEMA came around, I had everything I needed. And so that's how I was able to then go. But then when I get to FEMA, it was COVID. It was so much stuff going on it was just so heavy. And so we had largest fires, hurricanes, COVID, PPE, COVID funeral assistance, blah, blah, everything. I was like in the thick of it. But then my boss says to us, she pulls all the executives in and she says, all right, guys, we're getting ready to hit another hurricane season. Y'all know what this looks like. I know some of you are putting in 60, 70 hours a week, but you know what this looks like. Let's get ready. So I'm looking around the table, Jeff, and I'm like, I'm the youngest SES in here. Everybody else got grandkids. I got a kid. And I was missing her growing up. And I was not able to get the book and I was not able to do the nonprofit because of all the politics that was at play. So when I had the opportunity to leave and Amazon was like, hey, we want you to come on board, I took it. So as soon as I get to Amazon, first 6 months, because I had prayed to God about all of this. I didn't know how I was going to pay for the nonprofit. I didn't know how I was going to pay for the book. I just didn't know. So when Amazon came at me with this total compensation package.
I think I talked to you around the time you were making that transition from government to Amazon. I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so when they came at me with that total compensation package, I said, thank you, Lord. Now I know how I'm going to pay for the book and the nonprofit because I understand politics, Jeff. Yes. And when it comes to nonprofits, I know how politicians love to leverage nonprofits for visibility, but not give them money.
Ooh, absolutely. Because I can tell you during the housing crisis, because that's one thing I did, manage relationships with nonprofits, elected officials, and they would raise these big initiatives, and that they being the politicians raise these issues, but they would not fund them. They were being funded by the institutions that were out there. Or donors. I have to limit what I say about that because, that's general public knowledge about things that they were doing.
Yeah, and so you have to, as a nonprofit owner, you have to be very cautious about who you associate yourself with. And so for me, I was very cautious and didn't want to accept funds from politicians, nor allow them to come in and take and be visible with my nonprofit to get credit and then turn around and don't do anything, right? And so I funneled my money to help pay for over the last 3 years. I've been able to help and support over 3,047 people to get resources that they need to navigate their healing journeys. And so for me, it was so important that I did that because what I found through my self-aware, through my healing journey of finding out that it was a 60-year generational curse in my family.
Wow.
That means for 60 years, over 4 different generations, no one stopped it from happening. So for me to take on that mantle, it wasn't that I needed to just say, stop no more. No, I needed to build frameworks, processes, resources, everything that I need to help others heal, because I know that I wasn't the only one and my family wasn't the only one. So when I wrote my book, Letters to My Brown Girls, 4 Phases to a Liberated Life Beyond Childhood Sexual Abuse, I wrote that because so many people kept saying, Cynthia, we need you to write a book. You need to put your story in a book, blah, 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 blah. So I started writing a book in January 2019. January 2019, the day before I was in Punta Cana, was on a girls' trip. And I said, all right, I'm going to pack everything. I'm going to do the book writing when I get to Punta Cana. When I get to Punta Cana, next thing you know, the R. Kelly files start getting released.
Oh,
yeah. All that stuff started coming out. And I'm like, for me, that was a sign that, yes, there are more people out here that need your book. And so I started writing in January 2019, but because of my career shooting off with NATO, me going to FEMA, my writing was just like, it was just sporadic. And so I needed to have some time to just knock it out. So when I got to Amazon, I knocked it out. Those first 6 months, I knocked the book out, paid for a publisher, paid to get all the stuff done. And I learned about publishing process. And so then I published the book because it was a resource that I knew so many people needed. And the book did well. It hit #1 4 times on Amazon. It did so well that Amazon's KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing arm, they asked me to be a brand ambassador for them. Oh. So they did begin to fly me across the United States to sell my book and talk about KDP. A blessing. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. So I'm learning all the ins and outs about Audible and KDP. So I tell people now, like, yo, if you really want to know, I get you published in 3 days. Here's what it takes. So
I have a question. So no, not about that. Not about that. How hard was it to write the book? And not just physically, not in the piece about the time. I know you said you were busy, but just the mental aspect of it.
Let me tell you.
Therapeutic. Like how did that process go?
It was therapeutic. It was therapeutic because it took me back to my journey, where on my journey, I had what I said is called my Carefrontations, where I wanted to talk to my mom and my dad about their place in my past. And then I also talked to one of my uncles who actually did the things that he did to me. The other one's dead, and then 2 of my cousins, one is in prison and the other one is getting help. And so that meant going back to the story, going back to the projects, going back to the clotheslines, going back to suicide attempts, going back to trying to run away from home. All these things, it took me having to go through and write all of that. And the thing that helped me navigate it the most was my husband, who gave me space when I needed it. He hugged me when I needed it. He was there like wholeheartedly. My husband was my rock during this journey. And he never knew about how to deal with it, but he was open to everything. And my husband's Jamaican, staunch, hardcore Jamaican, culture, everything. And so for him, number one, he could never go back to Gaffney because he just really wanted to hurt some people. So So for him, it was navigating his emotions, but he really just put me first and really just allowed me to just be me and navigate that journey.
And I think that part is important for, talk to people who've gone through a lot of different types of trauma. And when people, family, friends want to try to support, but they don't know how.
Exactly.
And they don't know how. They feel helpless and they see somebody that they love and care for struggling. And they can't do anything about it. And they don't know how to support.
And that is why I started the nonprofit. It's called Hidden Treasure Incorporated. And our YouTube channel has a lot of our with the nonprofit. I started my Permission to Heal conference and my Shine conference. And during these conferences, we take on those conversations on behalf of the survivors, and we invite allies to it, supporters to it, so they can understand all of the different components of what it means and what it takes to help someone heal. That's why our mission is to empower survivors of sexual assault and the people who love them. Because it takes the people who love them, it takes that support to help them navigate the triggers, to be able to step outside of yourself and be able to see your own behavior, to be able to identify those survivor tactics that you put in place that you now have to break free of to then become healed and whole.
And I'm going to share the links that you referenced. When we put this out, I'll make sure that I share all the links that you gave me where people can see your site, your information, any sorts of videos you have out there, so they can go back and look at you speak at different venues. I'm going to share as much of your story and access to you as I possibly can, and where they can find your book, because I know they can still buy it, all of that information. So we'll make sure that everybody gets that. Once we start to put this out, and like I said, all the links and information will be there, because I think it's much, it's needed. It's a story that needs to be told. I think that just to figure out how, and just the support directly and just everybody around it.
Yes, and to be clear, the thing that also pushed me to start the nonprofit is that more men started coming to me. I have male survivors that are strong. They're strong-hearted, strong-willed, and they have that experience, that trauma that they were trying to navigate. And so I wanted to make sure that we had that conversation. And so we did one topic with I don't know if you know my brother, Les Davis, Pastor Les Davis.
Yeah, I know Les. Of course, yeah, I know Les. I know Les.
So yes, you do know Les. And so Les, whenever I needed Les flew up and he would do a session. And he did one session with the former mayor of District Heights here in Maryland, Dr. Jonathan Medlock. So it was Pastor Les Davis and Jonathan Medlock. And the topic of the conversation is the permission to love. And that conversation was dedicated for men navigating that space of healing and how to not just connect with their internal love, but also a spiritual love. And so here's two strong young men, very, as the women said, they were very attractive men that were talking about love. And so Dr. Jonathan Medlock, shout out to him for starting his nonprofit on love, and then with Pastor Les Davis and his ministry down in Kings Mountain. And so for them to support the effort and us to put out resources for men, I've had men come to me like, oh my God, I learned so much stuff here. Like the conference is just phenomenal. And so for that, to help men get the help that help men get the resources that they need, we also put, I put all those resources on YouTube so that they can go back and look at the different videos so that they can get what they need out of it, because people heal differently, right? Yeah. Some people want to heal in private, some want to heal at home. And so not only did I do that, but I also then got a contract with the Levy's Concessions and the Washington Commanders, where we work the concession stands for all of the Commanders games. Yeah. And it creates a safe space for survivors and allies to come together and talk and really create that safe space for them so that they can let their guard down and find out what are the different resources out there available for them to heal. So I do want to give a shout out to Levy's and the Commanders for their efforts over the last 2 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to give you just an opportunity, because I told you I would deviate from what I sent you.
Yes.
And this is good, some good podcast practice for you to be able to just pivot. I just want to, what do you want to talk about? Because we've talked about because every hero has an origin story. We talked about your origin story, because I do think you're a hero, first of all. We talked about things that you had to go through, your resilience, things that you had to fight just to get to where you wanted to be. And I like the fact that you talked about what do I want to be? Because that's a conversation. And I wish, sometimes I want to spend more time on that, because I hear a lot of young people, and they're like, I have a niece who's 20 years old, and I was talking to her one day, and she's all up in arms, like she's 20 and she doesn't know exactly, she's not where she wants to be right now. I said, you're 20 years old. I didn't know a thing.
Wow.
I didn't know a thing at 20 years old. So just that whole thing of you're out in the professional, you're still having that conversation and figuring out what that is, and knowing that's how you turn that into a profession and things like that. That was really important to me. And, talked about just your whole journey and everything. Then you talked about your trauma, how you survived it, how you overcame it, but also how you helped other people and those supporting them overcome it. So my questions and things I wanted to know, I think, are largely, I've answered most of those. What do you want to say? What do you want people to know and hear about you, your story, anything that you want to talk about? Because I don't want to limit you, because I want people to hear everything that you have to say. And I may just be short-sighted and not get it. What do you want to say?
Sure, that people look at what success, they try to define success. So I feel like I'm not where I am in my life, or I feel like I'm missing something, things like that. I want people to understand and be clear. Success is a moving target. It's not something that you reach. It's something that you experience along the journey. And what I mean by that is, I remember when I said I did not know what I wanted to be when I left Gaffney, because I never saw it.
Yeah.
But when I saw a Black woman doing it, I said, ooh, I want that. I want that.
Yeah.
So I started working for her. She became my mentor, and I mirrored my career after her. And along the journey, it was phenomenal to learn and grow. It was hard because, again, we're still Black women in a white male dominated industry. So she showed me how to navigate the politics and everything. But then it got to a point, and I never forget it, where I was leaving the organization and the companies. And she said, Cynthia, it has come a point where I can't help you anymore. You know more than me. And when she said that to me, my heart I started crying. It was at my going away party. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, what's next? Like, this must this is what I know. I've been in my safety zone, right? So when she said that to me, it was like right before I left when I was leaving to go to the joint staff. And she said that to me, and I was like, okay, I'm out here on my own now. Nobody can help me in this space. Nobody's ever done this before. I started looking, trying to find other women that has done it, but one other woman. And when I went to her and I asked her about it, she said, I'm going to tell you like this. You're going to have to leave this company, this organization, in order to get promoted. You are not going to get it here. And when she told me why, I said, oh, wow. And then I realized who she was and how it was everything she was talking about. Me and her had the similar background. Mm-hmm. And she told me about what was stopping her and how for me to take it to the next level, what I needed to do. And so when I did that, it was like, wow, I'm a pioneer at this point. And that's how NSA ended up giving me and awarding me the STEM Pioneer Who Rocks. Because I end up going and doing things that no one had ever done before. But I will tell you one thing, it can be lonely at the top. And you have to be secure in who you are to be able to navigate that. Because it's also by being lonely at the top, you have to be cautious of people trying to knock you down.
Yep.
And so I've done all that, learned all those valuable lessons. And I remember when I was talking at a women's conference, and the women, it was like 250 people in the room came to hear me talk, right? And I'm sitting there listening to them asking me questions. And this one group of women stood up and they said, we're starting a business to go into the weapons space. What is your recommendation? I said to them, my advice to you is that you're trying to go into a space that's dominated by white male culture. And this goes for anything. Any space you go into, you need to know who runs the space, who makes the money. When you go in, you figure that out, you adjust accordingly. And so I told them, you're going to need a white man on your team, an old white man with some gray in his hair. Because that's who run the weapons industry.
Yeah.
You want to do that, know the culture. Yeah. I took that same concept to the nonprofit culture. The nonprofits wanted to know how I was able to secure and do the things I did in a nonprofit environment. I said, you got to know the community. You have to know your community and you have to know the culture of your community, because as a nonprofit, the things you do to help the African American community, you can't do that with the Native American community. It takes knowing your culture. And so for me, you know, I've done all these things. I did the same thing at Amazon for these automotive customers, financial industry customers that have all come to say, well, here's our problems, here's what happens. And I said, you don't know your culture. If you knew the culture of your company, you would do bop, 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 bop. This is what's hindering you from moving forward with AI. This is what's hindering you from moving forward with cloud. I can tell you often when they would, I walk them through their conversation, their issues. I automatically knew what their problem was because I've been through it long enough in the Department of Defense and other spaces. And so now here I am officially no longer an Amazonian. My last day of work was about 2 weeks ago. So my next phase is doing what I want to do. And that is doing consulting, management consulting, cybersecurity consulting for different industries. I have experience in 16 different industries, but cybersecurity is still the same across all of them. And I've been able to be very successful in my profession. And so now as a consultant, I advise executives, boards on what they need to do for cyber and how they want to do with, you know, AI and things like that. So that's where Black Crest Cyber is, where my focus is always going to be applying cybersecurity with a human-centered approach, because people keep ignoring the human element part of it, and you absolutely cannot. So that's the first phase is the Black Crest Cyber, and then the second is public speaking. I love public speaking. I've been speaking now for about 20 years, and now I could actually get paid for it, because beforehand I couldn't. So now I can actually get paid to do public speaking. And so focusing on not just cybersecurity talks, but also speaking to the survivor community and children that are struggling to find their way out of poverty. So those are the things that I'm doing.
Dr. Sutherland, thank you. One thing I have learned, and I will pass along to when you go on your podcast journey, is when you have a guest and someone has spoken so profoundly and said something so that I think everybody wants to hear it, that's when you be quiet. And that's like, for me, I'm not going to follow that up with anything but a thank you. And I appreciate you so much for taking the time, for being here, for my platform and my Black History Month spotlight, and for the culture. I was so happy to just hear you talk about the culture and different cultures towards the end of that. So again, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go back. We have to come back and follow up after Black Crest, and then just talk about this next phase and this next chapter. Want you to come back. And there's some things on here that we touched on that I want to circle back on and talk about a little bit further, that I want to pull out and talk about if you have the time. I know you're going to be busy now. You're running your own thing. You got your own podcast. So if you come back and just talk to little old me and our folks again over here, I would surely appreciate it.
No problem, Jeff. I love you, yo.
Love you too. And again, I don't want my voice to be the last one that they hear. Give us one last thing to take us out of here. And thank you, everybody. Before I do that, because I don't want to be the last one to talk. Thank you, everybody on our platform, JCTV, for the culture, Black History Month. And again, you're not going to be the last. Mine's not going to be the last voice you hear today. What do you want to leave everybody with today?
I would say that as you navigate these next 3-4 years, I need you to take a step back and think about, what does success look like for you? What are some of the hidden talents that you may have? And figure out how you can leverage AI to expand upon your talents to help make these next 3 to 4 years impactful for you to continue to navigate and live your way of life.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.